Welcome back to another video. Today's video I'm going to be doing is the top 10 creepypastas that need a movie. Now, why am I doing this video? Well, this year in 2026, we got a creepypasta movie adaptation with Backrooms. Now, for those who don't know what Backrooms is, it started as a creepypasta on 4chan posted in 2019, but then in 2022, a YouTuber by the name of Kane Parsons, or Kane Pixels, as he's formerly known on YouTube, basically created a web series of found footage short horror films based on the Backrooms creepypasta. And then this year in 2026, he directed a movie based on the web series, which is also based on the creepypasta. And his Backrooms movie was a very well-received movie by both critics and audiences, and it was a big hit at the box office, making $81 million its opening weekend on a $10 million budget, and it's already made like $387 million worldwide. And the reception's been really good by fans of Backrooms and just in general. So for that reason alone, I figured there's 10 other creepypastas that, could make a good movie if done right, like Backrooms, or perhaps even better than the Backrooms movie. But anyways, I figured we'll just do this top 10 list, and yeah. And to be honest, I could have expanded this to like a top 15 list, but I'm just gonna do a top 10. Coming in at number 10 is gonna be Pen Pal. Now, Pen Pal Pen Pal is this creepypasta, and the interesting thing about it is that it originally started as a creepypasta in 2011, but then it was so famous that the creepypasta was actually adapted into a book, funny enough. But it's essentially this horror story about this guy that, basically tells about events that happened throughout his childhood, and then we find out as an adult, he's being stalked by an obsessive stalker, and I think that that's a really good concept. And if done right, this could lead to like a really good horror movie. In fact, I think it would be interesting to see Jennifer Kent, the director of The Babadook, do this type of movie. And I know she did that Nightingale movie in 2018, which I haven't seen. I heard good things about. Well, was it 2018? I don't remember. It was either 2018 or 2019. But I did like The Babadook, and I think it'd be interesting to see this director do it. Now, number 9 is going to be Smile Dog, and my choice to direct this is Curry Baker. Now, Smile Dog started off as this creepypasta in the early 2010s, where essentially it's about this guy who does these job interviews, and basically he shows these people this picture of Smile Dog, which is basically this creepy photo of, like, it takes an idea that we don't think is creepy, because a lot of people love dogs and, find them cute, but it basically explores what if he was to show people a picture of a husky, but this is not a normal looking husky. This husky has like very sharp pointed human-like teeth and a creepy smile, and pale white eyes staring at people. And anyone who sees the photo, like, are haunted by it, like, like, it drives them completely mad and over the edge, and like, it not only does it affect that, but like, it psychologically messes with people, like, many people are haunted by it in their dream. In the story, of course, many people are haunted by that photo in their dreams, and it just like really psychologically messes with people, and it even causes them to what to themselves. So I think that right there, that is a perfect template for a movie, and I think Curry Baker would be a perfect choice for this because I love the movie Obsession. I think that's a really good horror movie that came out this year, and I think, keep everything that makes a creepypasta great, but you could also explore, how that photo can mess up people, like, not only psychologically, but like, Obsession basically explored how I'm going to try my best not to spoil it, but let's just say the movie Obsession basically showed how a person's consequences, can basically change who they are and, and not for the better. I think if Curry Baker were to direct Smile Dog, yes, you can still keep everything that makes a creepypasta great, like how the picture psychologically messes with people and how it can ruin their lives, but you could also have it to where it makes people completely lose their minds and makes them change, into not very good people. And I just think there's a lot of potential for this to work if the right people are involved with it. Now, coming in at number 8, this is a I don't think enough people have talked about the possibility of this making a cool movie, but it is a bit of a newer one, and that is a truck stop horror. Now, this started as a creepypasta in 2015, and a YouTube channel that I follow, Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, which is a very big YouTube channel. It's been around since 2012. Basically, if you don't know what that YouTube channel is, it's basically a YouTube channel where they get really good people to narrate creepypastas that people wrote. And they've been doing it since 2012, and they're a very big channel. I think they have, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they have 276,000 subscribers. They're a really big channel. But this creepypasta from 2015 basically tells the story about a tired truck driver who pulls into an isolated rest stop and basically encounters an unsettling clerk and realizes the other parked vehicles belong to missing persons before a giant shadow-shrouded monster traps them in the dark parking lot, and in the dark lot by the gas station that they're all trapped in. And that right there is a good idea for, again, this creepypasta is only 11 years old, but I think that, there's a lot of idea for that, a lot of potential for that to work as a really good claustrophobic horror movie. I think someone like Neil Marshall, who directed The Descent, I think he'd be a perfect fit for this type of movie because when it comes to movies he directed like Dog Soldiers and The Descent, it shows that he's really good at claustrophobic environments, and I think you really need that for this type of story to work. Coming in at number 7 is going to be I Know Why We Never Returned to the Moon, and my choice to direct this movie would be Markiplier. Now, basically what this creepypasta is about, this was a creepypasta that was posted on Reddit in 2018, and ever since that creepypasta came out, a few YouTube channels have done video narrations of it, like Mr. Creeps, The Dark Summon, and then most recently, Chilling Tales for Dark Nights this year did a narration of the creepypasta. But essentially what this story is about, it basically tells the story about this guy whose dad used to work for, there's a twist that we find out later on, but basically, he's basically told that his dad, used to know, basically was an astronaut who worked for NASA and stuff like that. And he's basically told that, in the late 60s, in the 70s, that the family was basically told that he was in Vietnam and that the dad passed away in 2004. However, there's a part early on in the story where the narrator basically asked his dad his grandpa, if he ever met any people who went to the moon. And then the guy says to him, "Don't ever talk to me about the moon, boy. It's a dark and evil place." But then, early on in the story, the guy narrating it, he basically finds a classified file. Well, he basically finds a note and some photos that he's not supposed to come across with a thing called Project Lunar. And then the guy's like, wait a minute, why didn't my grandpa tell me about this? I found the answers, but I warn you, the people might find the contents very disturbing. But basically, long story short, we learned that the narrator basically comes across a note that his grandpa written saying, "I wasn't supposed to tell anyone, but if you're reading this, it probably doesn't matter anymore." And basically, he finds out that his grandpa and a team of non-public astronauts went on a secret mission to basically recover a satellite whose data was crucial on the moon. Well, they basically find out that going to the moon was a really bad idea, and this is a sci-fi horror creepypasta, and I'm not gonna give away too much for those who haven't read or watched a video on this creepypasta, because I encourage people to check it out. But yeah, let's just say it gets really disturbing. It has a really good sense of claustrophobia, and I think Markiplier would be a cool choice to direct this, because he is a fan of creepypastas from what I know, and also he directed Iron Lung, which came out earlier this year. And for those who don't know, Iron Lung was basically a PC original horror game that came out in 2022, and Markiplier is a massive fan of the video game. And he directed an independent movie adaptation of Iron Lung, which came out earlier this year, and it was a huge hit, making $50 million worldwide on a $3 million budget, and it was a very well-received movie by audiences, and many fans of the video game liked it, and from what I've heard, it's rather faithful to the game. So I think Markiplier doing this type of movie would be cool. Number 6 is going to be Killer Queen. Now, this is another more recent one, and I haven't seen enough people talking about this making a cool movie. I mean, it makes sense because it is a newer one. It was a creepypasta created in 2022 by Drew Blood, and it was posted to the official YouTube channel, Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. Like, some of these creepypastas are just posted on YouTube instead of a website, and this was one of those, so it makes sense that, not everyone's heard about this one. But what I like about this creepypasta, well, it was actually split up into 2 YouTube videos, but I think this could make for a compelling horror movie. Like, you could even split it up into 2 movies if you wanted to, but basically the premise of this is where it's basically a post-apocalyptic horror story, but with giant mutated killer wasp that take over the world. And we're not talking small wasp. No. We're talking wasp that can range from anywhere to the size of my head to a queen wasp that is the size of a bus. And these wasps only come out during night, and they'll kill anyone who comes across their path. And coming from someone who does not like wasp at all, I think that could make for a very creepy and intense movie, because I think that, what makes the story great is not only that sense of dread, but you also have a group of characters that you like about and you care whether they survive or not, and that could work really well for a movie. I think Jim Mickle, who directed the underrated 2010 vampire movie Snakeland, if you give him a bigger budget, I think that director could do a good job with an adaptation like this. So, yeah. Coming in at number 5, this is a pretty obvious choice. The Rake. And my choice to direct this is Brian Duffield. Now, some of you might ask, well, what is The Rake? So, basically, this was a creepypasta created in 2005 on the website 4chan. This creepypasta is basically about multiple eyewitness accounts who basically report sightings of a mangled, ghostly-looking humanoid creature that stalks its prey and basically will come across anyone who sees it, and basically, people will be haunted by it. And I think that has so much potential to be a really good horror movie if done right. My idea for a creepypasta film adaptation of this is yes, you keep everything the same. You have it be a horror movie where multiple people report eyewitness accounts about it, but I would also add an extra angle to where there's also, not only are there reported sightings of this creature, but people go missing, and there's multiple unexplained deaths, that are linked to the creature, and it could be a very good this could be a very good police detective, a very good police detective horror movie about a police detective trying to get to the bottom of these deaths and disappearances and the reported sightings and take down the creature responsible for it. I think that'd be a really cool way to adapt this as a movie, and I think Brian Duffield would be a good choice to direct this. Now, He directed the 2023 science fiction horror movie No One Will Save You, which was produced by 20th Century Fox, and it was a straight to streaming movie for Hulu. But difference was it was actually a good movie for Hulu, and that same director, Brian Duffield, he actually has a new movie that's actually coming out to theaters this October called Whalefall, which it actually does look like a really good movie about this guy swallowed by a sperm whale who's trying to find his father's remains before oxygen comes out, and it actually does look like a good thriller. And funny enough, recently it was announced that Brian Duffield is directing a Siren Head movie. Now, I know many people confuse Siren Head as a creepypasta, but that's not the case because Siren Head was just an internet meme that was created in 2018, an internet horror meme created in 2018. But now, yes, I know there were creepypastas after it, but it did not start that way. That's why Siren Head is not on the list. And it was announced that Brian Duffield, who directed the upcoming movie Whalefall and No One Will Save You, which I really liked, No One Will Save You, is directing a Siren Head movie with Zach Cregger directing. Well, no, it was announced Brian Duffield, who directed No One Will Save You, is directing a Siren Head movie with Zach Cregger co-writing, and we'll see how that turns out. But he'd be my current choice to do a movie adaptation of The Rake, so make it happen. Now, coming in at number 4 is going to be Psychosis, directed by David Robert Mitchell. And this is an interesting one where this is a creepypasta that was, written in 2010 by Matt Demersky. And basically, it is a psychological horror story that blurs the lines between clinical paranoia and terrifying reality. It follows a neurotic programmer who isolates himself in his basement, convinced that a technological entity is haunting him. And I think that has so much potential to work for a really good psychological horror movie. And I think that David Robert Mitchell, who directed the 2015 horror movie It Follows, would be a really good choice for it. And he's actually directing the upcoming dinosaur movie, The End of Oak Street, starring Ewan McGregor and Anna Hathaway, which I'm very excited for that movie. It looks really good, but I think David Robert Mitchell doing this movie would be cool. Coming in at number 3 is 1999, and this is a creepypasta that was posted in 2011. Well, it was a creepypasta posted on a website in 2011, but it didn't get actual YouTube videos until 2014. I believe that's when the first video of this was posted to YouTube. I could be wrong on that, but essentially, the plot is, in 1999, young Elliot gets a small TV in his bedroom. He doesn't miss his favorite TV shows. While scanning channels, he discovers a low-budget local broadcast from Ontario called Canal Local 21. The channel features a crudely made TV show starring Mr. Bear, a man wearing a dirty, unsettling bear costume. The episodes are bizarre, with a dark, menacing tone. As months pass, the broadcasts get more unhinged and sinister. Mr. Bear talks to the camera about haunting people and wiping out humanity, and neighborhood children go missing. Like, that right there is a really good setup for a movie. And I think someone like Scott Derrickson, who directed The Black Phone and Sinister, I think he would be a perfect choice to do this type of movie. And just, yeah. And now, look, I really liked the first Black Phone movie. I thought that the first Black Phone movie was good, but I didn't see the sequel because, look, I liked the movie The Black Phone, but it did not need a sequel. It was a one-and-done type of movie. So, if Scott Derrickson would adapt this creepypasta and do it the right way, that would be awesome. Because if you really think about it, like this story, it really does have those dirty, grimy vibes of, The Black Phone, the first movie. And I think that would fit this story really well. So, yeah. Coming in at number 2 is The Russian Sleep Experiment. And my choice to direct this is Christopher Nolan. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why Christopher Nolan? Well, I'm going to explain here. But basically, what's the plot of this creepypasta? Well, Created in 2010, this creepypasta is about 5 political prisoners in the late 1940s who are sealed in a gas-filled chamber to stay awake for 30 days with the promise of freedom. And so this is basically a body horror type of creepypasta. And I personally think with the right claustrophobic setting, sound design, and refrained creature design, this could honestly work. And now, since it is a short story, so you would have changes to make it a feature-length movie, but I think some stuff that could really make an adaptation of this work is moral ambiguity, where scientists who begin cold with clinical curiosity, and where you could basically have scientists who begin with cold clinical curiosity, they slowly descend into their own forms of paranoia and madness. Like, that right there could make for easily the best creepypasta movie adaptation of all time, to where it basically adds upon the story of the original story, while also keeping the mystery and intrigue very good without ruining what made that special. And when it comes to Christopher Nolan as a director, I mean, everyone knows who he is. He directed the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, The Prestige, Insomnia, Memento, in more recent years, Oppenheimer and The Odyssey, which I really liked those two movies. And I also liked Interstellar, and Christopher Nolan said himself, even as far back in 2023, that he would love to direct a horror movie someday, as he's a fan of the genre. And I think this story right here would be, if he's going to do any type of horror movie, because this is, and I think the Russian Sleep Experiment, it could work as a fantastic body horror movie and also a good psychological horror movie, a mind-bending psychological horror movie. And if Christopher Nolan were to direct it, I think that if he's going to do any type of horror movie, this would be the right one for him. So yeah. But for me, coming in at number 1 is No End House. And this creepypasta, I think, was created in 2012, although I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on that. And it's an interesting plot, and my choice to direct a film adaptation of this would be James Wan. But basically, the plot of this story follows a protagonist named David, who enters a mysterious nine-room haunted house, promising a $500 prize to anyone who reaches the final exit. But what's interesting about this horror story is how I kind of like how this horror story is inspired by, at least to some extent, although it's not exactly the same. You can tell it does borrow a little bit of inspiration from House on Haunted Hill, which, now, when it comes to House on Haunted Hill, I have only seen the remake movie that came out in the 1990s with Jeffrey Rush, but, the original movie came out in 1959 with Vincent Price, which I would like to watch the original movie someday, because I am a fan of Vincent Price as an actor. But anyways, back on track with this, I think this movie would be perfect for a director like James Wan, and James Wan is a very good director. I mean, the 2007 action thriller movie Death Sentence, starring Kevin Bacon and John Goodman, unpopular opinion, I think that it's James Wan's best movie. But he's also really good with horror movies. He directed the first 2 Conjuring movies, he directed the first 2 Insidious movies, he directed the first Saw movie, he directed Malignant, which I really like that movie. That movie's very underrated. He also did a good job with Death Sentence. And in terms of action, he also directed Fast and Furious 7, which, in my opinion, was the last good movie in that series and where that franchise should have ended. But anyways, getting back to this, what I like about this story, No End House, like I said, it's about this guy who enters a mysterious haunted house with 9 rooms, promising a $500 prize if he escapes the final exit. But what I like about this story is how he goes into the first 2 rooms, and whatever, the first 2 rooms, they don't seem that bad at all, where it's just like these fake animatronic zombies chasing him, but he can tell they're just fake animatronics, and it just looks like the inside of a haunted store. However, once he gets to the third room and he sees a dimly lit lamp barely lighting up the room in a chair, he starts to get the suspicion that something is off. And when he tries to escape the room, it's locked, because David gets the suspicion that each of the doors he's going in might be locked. And meaning he has no choice. He has to do the stuff inside the rooms to get out. And once he gets to once he gets to room 8, it gets insane where he basically sees a doppelganger who looks exactly like him, and the doppelganger is wanting this guy to, do what to him, basically to eliminate him so he can go forward to get to the 9th room. And I'm going to say the stuff that the character sees in the 9th room is just like very insane, and just this has a lot of potential with the right director. And I think James Wan could make this a really good psychological, mind-bending type of horror movie. That would be awesome. So yeah. Anyways, guys, that was my list of the top 10 creepypastas I think could work as a movie. I want to hear from you guys down below. What creepypastas do you think would work as a movie? Comment down below and let me know. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye now.